Before we begin, I want you to do something for me. Close your eyes, put on your headphones, and let the darkness wrap around you. What you're about to hear is not just a story, it's a nightmare waiting to crawl under your skin, a shadow that lingers long after the final word is spoken. So, are you ready? Good. Let's begin. The madman's silence. The old town of Grayfield had a silence that clung like dust on forgotten bookshelves. Its streets, though not empty, always felt deserted. Faces passing by with hurried glances, eyes that never lingered too long. Whispers traveled in the wind, stories spoken only when the candles were snuffed out and children had gone to sleep. Stories about him, the madman. No one ever called him by name. He had once been someone, surely, someone's son, someone's brother, maybe even someone's lover. But time had erased those details, smudging them into nothing but rumor. What remained was a figure, a shadow that haunted Grayfield's edges, a man whose eyes were said to see things beyond reason, whose laughter could freeze blood, whose silence was worse than screaming. Elena had grown up listening to the stories. As a child, she pressed her ear against the walls when her grandmother whispered with neighbors late at night. "They say he lives in that crooked house near the old mill," one woman muttered. "They say he talks to the walls. They say he keeps trophies." Elena's grandmother always hushed them. "Do not speak of him. Speaking of him invites him." But as Elena grew older, the tales shifted in her mind. Curiosity replaced fear. Who was this man, really? A ghost? A murderer? Or just another poor soul abandoned by a town too superstitious to understand him? Years passed. Life weighed heavy. Elena was now 23, working long hours at the bakery, her hands raw from kneading dough before dawn. Yet, no matter how much she tried to bury herself in work, her eyes often wandered toward the path leading to the abandoned mill, toward the crooked house. That night, the storm came without warning. Rain lashed against windows, and thunder rumbled like an ancient beast's growl. The bakery shutters rattled violently as Elena hurried to close them. But then, between flashes of lightning, she saw him. A tall figure standing at the end of the street, still, motionless, watching. Her breath caught in her throat. The madman. His silhouette was unmistakable. Broad shoulders hunched, head tilted unnaturally to one side. Even through the sheets of rain, his presence was undeniable. And then, it happened. In the brief silence between thunderclaps, she thought she heard it. A faint sound, not a scream, not a word, something far worse. A laugh. Thin, high-pitched, like glass splintering under pressure. Elena slammed the shutters and backed away, heart hammering so loud she thought the whole town would hear it. She didn't sleep that night. The storm raged on, but her fear was louder. The next morning, whispers bloomed across town. Mrs. Hargrove, the old woman who lived 2 doors down, was found dead, not from the storm, not from sickness, but in a way no one could describe. Her eyes were wide open, her lips frozen mid-scream, and in her hand a piece of cloth, a torn scrap of black fabric, the fabric of a coat, the kind the madman wore. People muttered, voices trembling. Some swore they saw him wandering past the cemetery. Others insisted he had been standing outside their windows, tapping the glass with a crooked finger. But no one dared to confront him. No one but Elena. The fear that clutched Grayfield had twisted into something heavier in her chest. Not just fear, a pull. She needed to know. The storm's memory wouldn't leave her, the way he stood, the way he laughed. And Mrs. Hargrove's death felt like a message. That evening, when the sky had calmed and the moon spilled pale light over the rooftops, Elena made a choice. She left the safety of her home and walked toward the mill. Every step echoed too loudly in the silence. Every shadow stretched too long. The closer she got, the colder the air felt, as if she were walking into a world untouched by warmth. And then, there it was. The crooked house. It leaned against itself like a drunkard ready to collapse. Its windows were blind eyes, its roof sagging under years of neglect. The wooden door bore deep scratches, like something had clawed its way, either in or out. Elena's breath clouded in the air, though it wasn't cold enough for frost. Her fingers trembled as she touched the door. To her surprise, it creaked open easily, as though the house had been waiting. The smell hit her first. Dampness, rot, and something metallic beneath it all. Blood. Inside, the house groaned with every gust of wind. The walls were covered in frantic carvings, symbols, words, faces etched with violent desperation. She moved slowly, her shoes crunching against broken glass on the floor. The air was thick, pressing down on her lungs. And then she heard it. Breathing. Not hers. Deeper, heavier. Coming from the corner of the room. Elena. Her heart stopped. The voice was soft, drawn out like a whisper crawling through her skull. He knew her name. She spun toward the sound. And there he was. The Madman. Tall, gaunt, his face a map of scars and shadows. His eyes, they were not the eyes of a man. One was pale and blind, the other burned with an intensity that made her stomach churn. His mouth curved into something between a smile and a wound. "You came," he said, his voice like rusted hinges. "I knew you would." Elena couldn't move. Every instinct screamed at her to run, yet her feet were bound by invisible chains of dread. "Do you know," he continued, stepping closer, "what silence sounds like when it screams? Do you know what it shows you?" She swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. What are you?" He laughed again, the same shattering laugh from the storm. "I am what Grayfield made me. I am the truth they buried. I am the echo of their sins." He reached into his coat and pulled something out. Elena's blood ran cold. A doll. It was old, its face cracked, its eyes missing. But its dress, its tiny stitched dress, was unmistakable. She had owned one just like it as a child. In fact, no. This was hers. She remembered losing it years ago, crying for nights when she couldn't find it. "How?" she whispered. The Madman tilted his head, smile widening. "You've always belonged to me." Her knees weakened. The room spun. She backed away, but he followed, slow, deliberate, savoring every step. "You see," he whispered, "they fear me because I am them. Their hatred, their secrets, their madness. I carry it all, and you, Elena." His hand reached out, long fingers curling toward her face. "You will carry me." Her back hit the wall. His shadow loomed over her, swallowing the pale moonlight that crept through the cracks of the house. The smell of blood grew stronger, suffocating her. "Elena," he whispered again, his lips so close she felt his breath. "Do you hear it? The silence?" And she did. The house fell into an impossible quiet. No wind, no creaking, not even her heartbeat. Only silence, so thick it screamed inside her skull. Her scream tore through it, raw and desperate, but no one in Grayfield heard her, for outside the crooked house, the night remained silent. Elena's scream should have shattered the night, should have woken the dogs, the birds, the sleeping people of Grayfield. But it didn't. It was swallowed whole by the silence, devoured as if the crooked house itself had feasted on her voice. The Madman's eyes glistened in the dim light, that one burning eye, sharp as a knife, locked onto hers. His pale lips curved into a grotesque grin. "There it is," he whispered. "The soundless scream. Beautiful, isn't it?" Elena pressed herself harder against the wall, nails clawing at the splintered wood, but there was nowhere to go. His presence filled the room like smoke, seeping into her lungs, her skin, her bones. "You've been listening to them all your life," he continued, voice dripping like molasses. "Their whispers, their stories, their fear." His head tilted, bird-like, sudden and sharp. "But did you ever ask yourself why they never told you the truth?" Her voice quivered, barely holding together. What truth?" The Madman chuckled, low and broken, as though laughter hurt him. He raised the doll again, stroking its cracked porcelain cheek with a tenderness that chilled her. "They made me," he said. "This town, your precious Grayfield. They fed me their cruelty, their lies, their secrets, and when I reflected it back to them, they called me mad." He stepped closer, and Elena smelled the iron tang of dried blood clinging to his coat. Her stomach lurched. She tried to edge sideways, but his shadow followed, pinning her like an insect under glass. "Mrs. Hargrove," Elena whispered suddenly, her voice breaking, You killed her." For the first time, his smile faltered. His face darkened, twisted. Then he shook his head slowly. "No, I didn't kill her. I showed her." "Showed her what?" "The silence." His eyes gleamed. "It was too much for her. It broke her. She saw herself in me, and she couldn't bear it, so she died with her own scream still in her throat." Elena's heart pounded so violently she thought it might explode. She wanted to believe he was lying, but his voice carried the weight of something more sinister, something that sounded like truth. "You're insane," she breathed. The Madman leaned in so close his scarred cheek brushed hers. "No, Elena, I am the mirror, and soon you'll see what they've hidden from you too." The room seemed to tilt, shadows lengthening, walls bending closer. The carvings on the wood, faces, words, symbols, seemed to move under the pale light, writhing like worms in the dirt. Elena's vision blurred. She pressed her palms against her temples, trying to shut it out, but the silence roared inside her skull. "Stop it!" she cried. "Please, stop." His voice dropped to a whisper, soft as breath on glass. "Listen." She didn't want to, but she heard it, behind the silence, faint voices. Whispers layered over each other, too many to count. Some sobbed, some begged, some screamed endlessly. And beneath them, she recognized something worse. Her own voice. Crying, pleading, laughing, screaming. Every sound she had ever made twisted and trapped inside the silence. Her chest heaved as panic clawed at her ribs. "Get out of my head!" The madman stepped back, arms open as though presenting a gift. "It isn't in your head, child. It's in this house. It's in this town. It's in you. You've always carried their silence without knowing. That's why you came to me." Tears blurred Elena's eyes. "I don't want this." His grin returned, sharp and gleaming. "No one ever does. But once you hear it, you belong to it, just as I do." He reached for her again, but this time she bolted. Her body surged with desperation, slamming into him with enough force to stagger his frail frame. She ran, her feet pounding against the rotting floorboards, the door swinging wide as she burst into the night. The cold air hit her like a blade. She sprinted down the path, her lungs burning, the crooked house shrinking behind her. The town's faint lights flickered ahead, a fragile promise of safety. But then, laughter. It followed her. It wasn't behind her, not entirely. It was inside her ears, inside her chest. She could still hear it even as the wind howled and her heart thundered. By the time she stumbled into Grayfield Square, gasping and trembling, a few townsfolk had gathered by the fountain. Their faces turned toward her, pale in the lantern light. "Elena?" someone whispered. "What happened?" She collapsed to her knees, sobs tearing from her throat. Words spilled out about the house, the carvings, the silence, the madman. But as she spoke, she noticed their faces. Blank, wide-eyed, not shocked, not confused, but knowing. Every one of them. Mrs. Patterson, the blacksmith, Thomas, the apothecary, even her childhood friend Lila, they all watched her with quiet, heavy eyes. And in that silence, Elena understood. They knew. They had always known. The madman was not a ghost story to them. He was their secret, their shame, the reflection they refused to see. Her voice broke. You all let him live there? You let him..." "Shh." Lila's voice was soft, but her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Don't say too much, Elena. You'll only bring it closer." Elena shook her head violently. "No, you don't understand. He's..." And then she stopped, because she saw him, at the far end of the square, standing in the shadows, watching. The madman. But the townsfolk didn't scream. They didn't run. They simply lowered their heads. Some wept quietly, some whispered prayers. None looked surprised. The madman stepped forward, slow and deliberate, his burning eye locked on Elena once more. His voice, though soft, carried through the silence like a bell toll. "She is ready." Elena's blood turned to ice. "No," she whispered, stumbling backward. "No, please." But hands caught her shoulders, familiar hands, Lila's, Thomas's, Mrs. Patterson's. Holding her in place, tears streamed down her cheeks as she struggled. "Why? Why are you doing this?" The blacksmith's voice cracked. "Because it must be carried, always." "Carried?" "The silence," Thomas murmured. His face was pale as chalk. "It cannot be destroyed, only passed on." Realization sank into her bones like cold water. The madman wasn't eternal. He wasn't a monster born of nothing. He was a vessel, a chain. And now, they were giving her to it. "No!" Elena screamed, thrashing, her voice raw. "Please don't! I don't want this! I don't want him!" But the silence already coiled around her like smoke, pressing into her ears, her mouth, her soul. Her scream stretched, broke apart, and vanished. The madman reached her, his hand cold and heavy on her cheek. His scarred face softened with something almost like pity. "You are me now," he whispered. And then everything stopped. When the dawn broke over Grayfield, the townsfolk moved quietly, their faces heavy with grief but not surprise. The crooked house by the mill stood still, silent, its windows dark. And inside, sitting in the corner where the carvings bled from the walls, was Elena. Her hair tangled, her eyes hollow, one pale and blind, the other burning with a fire not her own. The madman was gone, but the madman lived still. And in Grayfield, the silence screamed on.